We're going to stuff Olive's bear today, but before we do, I thought I would just run through again the types of stuffing that is available for you to use on your bear. So you can buy polyfill, which I don't have here. You can buy it anywhere. It's that synthetic polyester filling that comes in a bag, and you can pull it apart and use it for stuffing. It works really well. Over time, it does compress just like everything else, but it is quite expensive now. I mean, you used to be able to buy a great big bag for, $15 or so, but I think it's quite expensive. A few other things that you can use is you can also get foam chips. It's the same idea, really. I'm just looking to see what this is. This is non-allergenic, economical. I actually got this at the recycle center for $3, a great big bag of it. It's brand new, it hasn't even been opened. So you can use foam chips. You can use scraps of yarn like you saw me making, scraps of yarn. There's batting in here, there's yarn, there's fabric, there's thread, and I always keep my little bits and pieces in a container. I usually just use an ice cream pail and I throw it in there, and then when I have a stuffing project, I chop it all up like I did, and I actually add this to other stuffing, because this is, in my estimation, this makes a better solid thing, like a hand or nose or foot. Those are the areas where the bear is touched, grabbed, moved. Those are the areas that are going to compress down first. So if you put a mixture of different things in, sometimes that helps to slow that process down. It always will over time compress, but when you have a mixture of things, I find that it doesn't compress as fast. So if you have a jar of threads, throw them in there too. The other thing you can use, somebody gave me, this is all that's left, but I was given this 10-pound bag of old, it's not been used, but the old style quilt batting. Sorry about the crinkling. I'm just going to get some out of here. So it's the really thick, heavy stuff that you used to use years ago. And this also makes good stuffing. You can tear it. The only thing is with this is if you're going to use something like this, tear it up. Even your fiber fill, when you take it out of the bag, do this to it. Fluff it up really well. That helps to kind of get the air in all the fibers, and it prevents some of that clumping that goes on sometimes. So this is just quilt batting, but now I've made some fiber fill out of it. This is old quilt batting from, I don't know, the lady who gave it to me quit doing quilts, and she had this from years ago. Like, I'm talking probably 30 years. This has got that funny backing on it, but if you pull it apart, you've made fiber fill. So you can use old quilt batting, pieces of, I have some new quilt batting in here, the new stuff, the kind of stuff that everybody uses now. I just chop it up. If you want your bear to be 100% natural, and a lot of people do, you can buy wool roving, and you can use it. Now, this is an expensive venture, but if it's a special bear and you want it to be 100% pure, this is a great option. And actually, I have always got some of this on hand, because I used to restore antique dolls and bears and toys, vintage and antique, and a lot of people who have an antique doll, like I'm talking about a composition type doll, they want as natural as possible, because a lot of those dolls were stuffed with, some were stuffed with this type of thing, wool, some were stuffed with sawdust. I mean, there was, back in the day, they used all kinds of different materials to stuff things. But this is 100% pure. It's gonna compress just like everything else, but it won't compress as much. It still pops up a little bit better than the synthetic type. So those are some options that are open to you. You stuff your bear with whatever you have on hand or whatever you want your stuffing to be. You know, it doesn't matter what you stuff it with, as long as I would make sure that it's clean. Of course, you want it to be clean. And you also, if you're giving it for a child, if you're making your bear for a child, like I am, be aware that it is at some point going to end up in a washing machine. So that's another thing to consider. If it's for yourself and it's never going to hit a washing machine, you have a little bit more options there. So I hope that this is helpful for you at this stage. I'm not going to be using the wool because I'm saving this for any kind of projects that I do for other people who request wool. I am going to use some of this old batting, quilt batting, because I've still got a lot here to use up. And I am going to try the foam chips. I have never ever used foam chips to stuff anything. I have heard from other people who made a lot of soft toys and things that over time they really move a lot because they are little pieces. So I'm going to use this old quilt batting, some foam chips, some of this, and all of this for my bear, for Olive's bear. So I hope that helps you decide what you want to use. And I think it's time now to get started with stuffing Olive's bear. Here we go. So I use an old plastic. It's got a nice round end on it, knitting needle, and the point isn't so pointy that it's going to go through the fabric to get into the small spaces. And I'm going to start off with the fiber fill. I'm going to put that in first, and I'm sort of going to layer things a little bit. So I'm just, this isn't fiber fill, remember. It looks like fiber fill. It sort of acts like it. But actually what I think this is, it's quilt batting, but I think it's been fiber fill sort of compressed into a pad. But I'm breaking it all up because I want it not to clump too much. So I'm just going to show you how I stuff my bears and most toys. You're going to do everything through this hole here. What I usually do is I stuff the extremities first, so the arms and the feet first. And then I will stuff the head, and the last thing I stuff is the body, because that's where you're just going to keep adding more and more. So I do the parts that aren't attached. They're attached to this main part, but I get them nice and stuffed first because they're the furthest away from the hole. The other thing is, you can stuff your bear really tight and have a hard bear, or you can stuff it, understuff it, and have a soft, squishy bear. Again, this is a personal choice of yours, and I think also it's a personal choice depending on who's receiving the bear. I know from experience, I've made a lot of these bears, and I've given a lot of them away, and I know that children tend to like the squishy, soft ones better than the really hard ones. So that is just how I've come to know it. But again, it's your bear. You can stuff it tight if you want to, or you can stuff it loosely. It depends on what type of a feel of a bear you want. So I put some fiber fill in first, or, you know, when I say fiber fill, I mean this fiber batting. Now I'm going to put some of this in. And it's a little messier because it's little bits and pieces, but it'll still go in really nicely. It just adds a little bit more stability, I believe. I have to get it down into the toe really well. And I'm using the blunt part of my knitting needle to do that. So, like in every part of this bear, take your time with this. Don't rush it. It is part of a slow stitch project, and this part can be quite slow as well. So just take your time and work all your pieces in there as nice as you can. And eventually you will have a completed bear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff this bear. I've given you the basics of what you need to know to stuff it. So now it's just up to you to get going at it. And I'm going to stuff this off camera, because if I don't, this is going to be a very long video, and I don't want it to be so long. So I'm going to stuff the bear, and I'm going to get the whole body stuffed, but I won't close it up. So when I get the whole body stuffed and I'm ready to close it up, I will come back and we will do the next part. There are a few extra things that we can do after the bear is stuffed. Besides putting the ears on, we do have to do that as well. So happy stuffing, and I will see you in a little while. So I have just pinned this opening closed, and I'm going to be sewing it closed with this again, this number 40 crochet cotton that I have. It's pretty old stuff, but it's still good and strong. So I'm going to just tie a knot on the end of this, and I'm going to start sewing this together. I'm doing this through, I think I'll start on this end. Take that pin out so that I can get my finger in. Make it nice. There we go. So to close, we're just going to do a little invisible whip stitch in there. Get my knot down inside. Just going to pull it out a little bit. There we go. It's a very small area. There. It's got to get a hold of it. And it's not great when you're working through the lens of a camera. It's a little more difficult to do. So once I get this closed up, then we're going to work on the ears. And the ears, you have to, actually I'm just going to whip stitch this, I think. I don't think you're going to really notice it that much. There's so much stitching on here anyway. The ears, you're going to have to finish off the bottom of them. So turn them under a little bit and stitch that down so that you have a nice clean edge to sew with. The other thing about the ears is when I've done bears just with regular fabric, not with layered fabric like this, and not with 2 or 3 layers on top of each other, just with a single layer of fabric, I have always put a little bit of stuffing in the ear just to give it a little bit of definition. I'm going to take this pin out. But because this was made differently, I'm not going to do that because there already is several layers on that ear, and it's going to stand up beautifully. It's not going to flop. When you make a bear with fur, sometimes you do put a little bit of fiber fill in there. If it was just a regular cloth bear, you know, if you made it just out of 2 pieces of cotton without having the lining and stuff like what we have with this one, then you could put a little piece of quilt batting in there, that type of thing, just a very thin piece just to kind of give it some stability. But I don't think it's needed in this case, so I'm not going to do it. My ears are very solid because there's a lining inside because we put it on a base fabric, and then I've also appliqued on top of that as well. So really, you don't need any more in there. So I'm just whip stitching, making tiny little stitches all along here. Oh, I got a knot. How lovely is that? So I have decided that this bear is going to have, usually when I make a bear, I usually have a bow around its neck. Most bears, if you buy a teddy bear, it usually has a ribbon bow or some kind of bow. And I was thinking about this one, and I don't think this bear is going to have a bow. But this bear is going to live in the Yukon. So I'm knitting it a scarf. And I'm just using scraps of baby yarn, fingering weight yarn, any kind of thin yarn that I can find. And it's going to be a scrappy scarf for a scrappy bear. And it's going to be multicolored, just like the bear is. So that is what my bear is going to have around the neck. Most of my bears have something around their neck. If you remember seeing my Pookie, it had a crocheted piece that I did around the neck. And it fit that bear because that bear, the fabric on that is from a dress of mine that I used to wear. And it was very sort of Victorian looking fabric. It was very pretty. It was kind of subdued colors, a very smoky blue and a smoky red. And when I made it at the time, I made it to sit on my bed. I knew that sort of was my decor, was a lot of lacy things, sort of Victorian. I was into that Victorian stage back then. And so I crocheted her a lace collar, and I just wove the ribbon through the lace. So most bears will have something around their neck. You don't have to put anything around their neck, but I always do. So this bear will be very much like that. Kijik, the Hudson Bay bear that has the scarf around the neck. This one will have one like that too, because she is going to be living in the Yukon, where they already have a lot of snow. And speaking of snow, this morning when I woke up, I sleep with my window open a little bit. I love the fresh air. And I could hear swishing, and I thought, oh, it rained, because the cars on the street were making a swishing noise. And I got up, and I didn't open the drapes right away or the blinds. I just, was walking around. Gary was already up, and he was making coffee, and he said, did you look out the window? I said, no, why? He says, well, go look. As soon as he said it, I thought, oh, the swishing isn't rain, it was snow. And sure enough, it had snowed, and it was still snowing. And actually, it still is snowing. The flakes are getting actually bigger now. So that put me in a different mindset because years ago, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos several years ago. Years ago, I think Jonathan maybe was 7 or 8 years old. His dad used to take him Christmas shopping for me. And, I got to finish this part up here. And I'm just going to make my knot. He took him shopping, and he always let him pick out the gift. Even though sometimes he said really he wasn't that crazy about what he bought me or that he picked out, But he never challenged him on it. If that's what he wanted to buy me, Gary said, okay, fine. So anyway, they went shopping. And on this particular year, he picked out a snowman cookie jar. And I don't know, I can't remember how this tradition started with us, but from that year on, every year after that, whenever the first snow came, the snowman cookie jar came out, that signaled kind of the beginning of winter in our home. And that day, the cookie jar came out with the first snow, and it was kept full of cookies for the remainder of the season. So, of course, Jonathan is grown up. He doesn't live with us anymore, but I've always kept that tradition. I still have the cookie jar. I still put it out every year, and I love it. And yeah, that was the first thing that went through my mind was, oh gosh, I got to make cookies today. But I will. I'm going to make cookies. And I was thinking about what kind of cookies I want, because a few weeks ago, I made a whole batch of cookies, which we've already eaten. And I had made chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. And I have a recipe that one of my coworkers years ago gave me, and it makes a huge batch. And I have still some in the freezer. And I thought, I could cheat and just go get some out of the freezer and put them in the cookie jar. But that's cheating. I couldn't live with myself if I did something like that. So I decided that I am going to make some kind of cookie that I have not made in years. And actually, it's one of my favorite cookies. I'm going to make some, now what are they called? They're the cookies that have the dates in them, but they're not an oatmeal cookie. They're rolled. Oh, I can't remember the name of them now. Good gosh. Anyway, it'll come to me. Give me a moment. Have I closed that? No, there's one more stitch there. So that's what I'm going to make. They're actually quite a bit of work. Oh, what's the name of them? You're probably screaming at me with the answer, aren't you? I kind of did a botched job on this, but oh well. Okay. There we go. Now, I have to attach the doll. And I think I'm going to need a different needle because this one has quite a big head. Where would I be if I was a needle? Not there. Oh, how about a needle case? Yeah. Pinwheel cookies. Haha, I knew if I quit thinking about it, it would come to me. Pinwheel cookies. Date pinwheel cookies. So that is what I'm going to make. Not in here. The trouble with me is I have needles all over the place. Okay, hold on. I got to get a needle. I should be able to find one with a larger head. There's a good one. So I put the string for the doll inside the arm before I sewed it shut. So that was fortuitous of me. Alrighty, lady. Where am I going to put you? I think I'm just going to sew it right to her head. And I'm going to give her quite a bit of leeway here. Just do a few stitches so that she doesn't get lost. There's a wooden bead for a head. How about that? Okay. Snip that off. And the dolly goes in the pocket, which is quite tight now that the arm is filled up, but I can kind of ease some of that stuffing up. This will loosen up over time. Not loosen up, but the bear will look different 5 years from now, I'm sure. There, the dolly's in. Now, I think I'll just tuck that string right in behind. Somehow. There. Look at that. Isn't that cute? She's got her own dolly. So I did notice a few things that I want to tack down, like this here. I want to tack that down on both sides so that it doesn't stay. But we're going to turn to the ears now. So I have 2 ears here. So this is what I mean. We're just going to turn this raw edge over just a tiny bit and stitch it down so that we have a nice clean edge. We don't want all this to show. So I'm just going to use sewing thread for that. Just regular sewing thread. And I will use this smaller needle again. Could have sworn I cut that. I guess I didn't. So it kind of looks like I'm going to be doing some pinwheel cookies this afternoon. I haven't made those for years. I used to make them at Christmas time all the time. And to be honest, not many people in my family really liked them because they didn't like dates. But I love dates. And if my son was here, he'd really like them too because he's like me. He loves figs and he loves dates. So I'm just going to do a little running stitch along here just to keep this little turned edge over. Just turn as I go. I don't think Gary really likes those cookies, but oh well. If he doesn't like them, he's got chocolate chip oatmeal in the freezer he can go and get. But in the cookie jar, I'm going to put the date pinwheels. So that's what I'm going to do this afternoon. The snow won't stay. It's supposed to get warm again. I mean, warmer. It was only -2 Celsius this morning, so the snow isn't going to stay. It's going to melt. But the tradition is the tradition, and I'm going to stick with it. Anyway, I'm kind of in the mood to bring my snowman out. In fact, I was I was telling Gary yesterday that I don't know where should we put the Christmas tree, and he looked at me like I was out of my mind. But you know, so many people are promoting Christmas stuff already. Gosh, Remembrance Day hasn't even hit yet. So I'm not going to go that far. But a snowman, my idea is that a snowman is not Christmas. A snowman is winter. It's nothing to do with Christmas. You can bring your snowman out anytime, as long as it's winter. It doesn't have anything to do with Christmas. So I will bring my snowman cookie jar out. And I might even bring my other snowman. I made this big snowman when I was working in a obstetrics clinic. The hospital that I was working in had a mall where, starting around now probably, they had artisans come and sell things, you know, sort of like a great big craft sale. So every lunchtime we'd all run down there to see what was new, who had new stuff, and they had all kinds of really beautiful stuff down there. And this one year we went down there for just to check it out, and a lady had made these, she called them a greeter snowman, and it had a wood base, and it stood, had feet, and then she had knitted, she knitted, I can't remember if she actually knit the sweaters, but she put pants on these things and then had a big sweater on them and a toque and a pair, they had mittens on and everything, and they were about the size of a 6-year-old child. Well, she had several sizes. There were smaller ones too. And the idea was that you would put them on your steps. They held a string of lights. You'd put them on your steps, and they were your door greeter. And she was charging like $100 for one of these. And they were worth it. They were beautiful. So one of the nurses that I worked with, she bought it. She bought one. And I kept saying to her, oh my gosh, you know, like I could make that for, and she says, Dale, but I can't make it. She says, I know you could make this. She says, but I can't. She says, so I'm buying one. So she bought one and carried it upstairs. And when we got upstairs, it was still break time. I said to her, give me that snowman. And she said, why? And I said, just give me that snowman. So I took it into one of the exam rooms, and, you know, a doctor's exam room has the paper on the bed. Well, I rolled the bed, some fresh paper on there. I stripped the snowman down to the wood, and I made a pattern off of the wood and redressed him and brought him back to her. She said, what did you do? And I said, never mind. And I went home that night, and of course I didn't have any plywood or anything like that. Like, I really had a good look at how this thing was made. And on the weekend, the following weekend, I went to the hardware store and I got myself some wood, and I got out my jigsaw and I cut out the pieces, put it together. And I didn't have time to knit a sweater, so I went to the secondhand store and I found a child size bulky sweater and a pair of child size pants. I think it was like a size 4 I bought or something, blue jeans. And I put it on this snowman, and I did knit a hat and gloves or mittens for it and scarf. And I went in my Christmas stuff and got a pair of some lights. And that next Monday, I took my snowman in, and everybody just flipped. They said, how did you do that? And I said, well, this is what happens. You know, if you bring something like that to me or show me, I'm going to figure it out. So I made one for all my brothers and their families. And everybody just loved them so much. And of course, I made one for myself. And we had a family reunion the next year. And they were asking for donations of prizes, gifts, and things like that. So I made one, and oh my gosh, they fought over that. I raised quite a bit of money with that one. So yeah, it was a nice. They're beautiful, and they are a bit of work, but I have redressed mine several times. I ended up I have several different sweaters for it because I ended up knitting one for it. Actually, I knit two. I have a red one and I have a blue and white one, so I can change it up. And for the blue and white sweater, I have blue corduroy pants. And for the red sweater, I have sort of a checkered green pants that I made. So my snowman, and of course I have coordinating hats and stuff. So my snowman is sits downstairs under the stairs all summer long, and I could bring him up now too. Okay, so I've hemmed these. Now, see, these are quite sturdy, but I think I'm going to just do a little tack right here in the middle, just so that it stays together. I don't know if I want it to. I don't know. I have to think about this for a minute. Do I want it to have a little curl to it? I kind of think I do. So I'm going to run this through here. Just a tiny little tack. And at this point I have to decide which is inside and which is out. And I think I will have this inside. So one more little stitch. Can you see what I'm doing? I'm sorry. I'm looking through the camera. I'm actually not looking. I'm looking at my work. So I'm just going to tack it right here in the middle. I don't know if this will do anything or not. We will see. Yeah, I think it will. So I'm going to knot that. Okay, there's one ear ready to go. This ear, I think I'll have it this way too. Maybe this one I won't tack. So we're going to put the ears on our bear. I think I'm going to do something with the eyes too. I mean, the bear looks a lot different when you put the ears on, but I have an idea that I might stitch some eyelashes around here. I'm kind of thinking I might do that. So now I need some more thread, and I'm going to sew the ears on with this thread again. I better close this before I have pins all over the place. So when it comes to the ear placement, this again is another individual choice that you can make. I know people who like to have the ears way up at the top. I like to have mine starting at the seam here. And I like to have, I don't like it to be too far back. I like it to be more forward, like about here. That's about where I would say is perfect for the ear, for the bear. So I'm going to have the edge of this on this seam and have it this way. And I'm going to curve it a little bit like that. Same with this one. I will have this one here. Now, how far up do I want them? How far down do I want them? I think I want them about here. And I need pins. Actually, I think I need bigger pins. I'm going to go get my long pins for this. Okay, I've been monkeying around with these ears, and I actually like them better across the ear. This one is still bothering me a little bit. I don't know why. There, maybe that's better. I think I'm just going to go with that. So I did cross over here a little bit, but these ears actually turned out a bit smaller than how they were cut, and I think that's because of the stitching. You know, when you stitch, when you're sew stitching and you're putting it on a base fabric, it does bring in your end piece, and I think the ears maybe lost some of their size from that, but that's okay. I'm not bothered by it. I am going to do some touch up on the nose and the mouth a little bit too. Still things to do. So I'm going to sew these on now, and I'm going to do just a stitch all the way around. I've pinned them, so you know, make sure you pin them so that they don't move on you while you're working, and just whip stitch them all the way around, and then I will come back to you and maybe we will work on some more face features. I decided that since I had told you about my restoration projects, that I would show you one of the ones that I worked on. This was probably 15 years ago or so, and unfortunately back then I wasn't doing videos, so all I have is still photographs, and some of them are not very good, so excuse the poor quality. But this is a monkey that belonged to a friend of mine, and she wanted me to restore this monkey. It was her childhood monkey. She had received it in the 50s when she was very young, and or maybe even in the early 60s, I'm not sure. She didn't remember what the monkey was called at the time, but I did some research, and there was two monkeys like this that were both made in the 1950s. One was Mr. Bim, who was made by the Columbia Toy Company, was much like this, and the other one was Zip from the Howdy Doody Show, which was made by the Ralston Company. There were also some monkeys like this that were made that had a banana in their hand, but this one wasn't one of those. So we aren't quite sure which one this is, if or even if it is either one, because this was bought in Canada, so it's quite possible that this might be a knockoff monkey. I'm not really sure. So the monkey had rubber hands, rubber feet, the white shoes on the feet, face and ears were rubber, and the rest was fur. But she said that this was not what the monkey looked like when she got it. It had a blue and white striped shirt. It had bright yellow overalls with a red button, and that's what she remembered through her childhood, playing with a monkey that looked like that. And that's what she wanted me to restore the monkey to. I guess over the years, the fabric of the monkey became very thin and worn out, and so somebody, she thought maybe her mom, had put this fur on, just covered the whole body up with the fur. She wasn't sure if there was what was underneath it. This was just how it was, had been fixed so that the kids could play with it, and her kids played with it like this, and she wanted it restored because she wanted to pass it on to her grandkids now. I started taking it apart, and this is what I found underneath the fur. I found the original blue and white striped body was underneath the fur. This one arm on this side was completely demolished. I didn't think I could save the arm at all, the fur of the arm. So I just little by little stripped off the fur that had been put on over top of all the body, and I started to expose what was underneath. Then I washed the monkey in soap and water. Look at how white those feet came out. The one arm I took off completely. It needed a whole remake. And I hung it outside to dry in just in the air, and I left it, for quite a while till it was good and dry. And then I opened it up even more, and I started to repair the fabric by putting some interfacing inside of it, and I actually put a stabilizer inside of it, and I was able to actually use the body again by stabilizing inside. There was some pieces that I actually put another layer of cotton, much like what we've done with Olive, inside, and sewed it right into the body so that I could keep that body the same way. I didn't want to make a new body. I wanted to restore it with the body that it had. I had to make a new fur arm, and I did have much of the same black fur as that, so I did make a new fur for the other arm, and I restuffed it. It had been stuffed with wool, and some of the wool was pretty bad, so I used some of my wool stuffing, and I used a little bit of the old as well, and I restuffed the body. In the meantime, I had some fun doing some photo shoots with the monkey and some of my collections. So this is one of my dolls, and here the monkey's on a cage, on Chip's cage. And here it's with one of my antique dolls, Paul. Paul was a semi-restoration too. I still have a lot of work to do on him, but he was in a box in a million pieces when I got him. And so I decided at this point that because the body, I had fixed it, but I didn't want that to be the outside part of the body. So I decided that I would make a shirt in this same type of striped fabric, and so that I could put the shirt over top of the body just to protect it a little bit from people playing with it and stuff like that. And I made the monkey some overalls, with yellow overalls with a red button. And this is the way he turned out. I actually did a little bit of coloring in the mouth as well. All the coloring had long since departed, so I added a little pink and red in there. But he turned out just fantastic, and she was so happy with him. She said it was exactly how she remembered him from the first day she got him. So I was really happy that it turned out so well. It was a lot of work. I spent probably close to a month working on this monkey, and it was a very difficult restoration, but it turned out fine. And he's still living on. Her grandchildren have played with him, and they're teenagers now, and he's gonna go on through the generations. So it was a very successful fix, and I was very pleased and proud to be able to do that for her. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'm sorry about the quality of the pictures. They're just, I've got them on my iPad, and I'm just trying to make the video that way. I couldn't actually bring them into my editing program. It just messed with the pictures too much. So there you go. There's one of my projects, my former projects, and I'm going to cut this video here. It's long enough, and I will see you next time with the full reveal of Olive's bear. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day, everybody. I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.